Not bad. Let's have a quick talk about Fire Emblem Three Houses so I can stick this video up on YouTube. We've just finished the game and oh boy, I've got so much to talk about. I don't think I've played a game that was so, not controversial, but I've never been so much in two minds about a game before. I know this game is very, very beloved, first of all. It's got a huge community of pretty awesome fans, and that's awesome. But I don't know how I feel about this game. A part of me wants to love it, and the other part of me just was happy to get it finished. So we only played one playthrough. We played on classic difficulty normal, and we played the Red House, for anybody who's coming in to watch this and has no idea about our playthrough. I started off really enjoying this game, and it's exactly as I expected it. I've never played a Fire Emblem game in my life, so this was my first ever playthrough. Came into it knowing absolutely nothing, but obviously you guys had spoke very highly of it, and I needed to try it. I'm glad we picked this game up because I think it's good. I think it's a cozy game, and there's a fucking shit ton of effort put into it. So fair play to everybody who made this game. On the whole, I feel like I made a mistake in picking normal difficulty. I think that had I picked hard mode, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. It would have taken us longer to get through it, but I think ultimately it would have made a bit more sense. Everything I did in the game would have made a bit more sense, and everything would have felt so much more satisfying. So when you play on normal mode, at least for me, the reason I picked normal mode is because the game suggested it to me, and unfortunately I couldn't jump from normal up to hard halfway through. Apparently you guys told me after the fact that I can go from hard mode down to normal, but you can't go normal up to hard mode, which is a bit of a bummer, because I found myself getting very bored about halfway through this playthrough. Not because the game was not fun to play, but I felt like it became fairly straightforward, fairly easy. My units became overpowered very quickly, and so all of the strategy involved and everything you do in the social time that connects into the strategy was almost put to waste. All of my guys would just one-hit kill, which means that, you know, my equipment didn't matter, the money I made didn't matter, the bonds I forged between my comrades didn't really matter. There are little nuances to the gameplay that made things easier for me, and some of it I maybe missed, which made it harder for me, sure, but on normal mode we cruised through it. We didn't lose a level. I think I Divine Pulsed maybe, let's just say I Divine Pulsed maybe 7 times in the entire playthrough. So a couple of you guys had said a couple of things along the way, like, oh, hey Jack, maybe you could put restrictions on yourself. Sure, I could have. Maybe I could have chosen not to use Divine Pulse and played it as if, you know, we were actually putting on an unofficial hard mode, but we got so deep into it at this point, I was just kind of determined to get through it. The aspects of this game, I'll start with the positives, right? Because those are the things that everybody wants to hear about, and don't get me wrong, this game is good. I just feel like it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. Let me start with, as I say, the positives. So the gameplay, in terms of the tactical fighting, is great for me. I love it. I love the tactical aspects. I love RPGs where everything you do outside of the combat filters into the combat. So if you're a player who takes the time to run around and prepare yourself, sort out your inventory, pick your classes ahead of time, make sure that your characters are going in suitable roles, you get rewarded. And when that all comes together in the fight, in the battles, it really does feel really awesome, which is great. All of the character dialogue that was voice acted in this game has been done magnificently. They've put a shit ton of effort into all the characters' lore. All of the kind of, like, how the game looks is quite good as well. All the animated cutscenes you see. I'm guessing that there are a number of different endings for the different houses. I love that you can play through the different houses and get different pieces of what's going on in the grander scheme of things. There's obviously replayability there. If you play through the red house, you maybe then want to play through the blue house, and then maybe play through the yellow house if you're so inclined as well, or whatever, depending on which house you picked. On the flip side of all this though, I gotta talk about some of the negatives, because this game was exhausting for me at times, and I just want to quickly mention a couple of these points as we go. I feel like there is a lot of bump in this game, and when I say that, I mean as in there's a lot of time wasting. And if you don't buy into the character's lore, if you don't have the patience or the time to sit through all of the character dialogues, it can be exhausting. So I want to be the guy who sits there, and I want to be the guy who listens to Petra talking to Linhardt talking to Casper talking to Bernie. I want to listen to all the effort put in there, all the voice acting, all of the chit-chats, all of the development of the characters. But I could not give less of a fuck when I got halfway through halfway through this game. There is already so much micromanagement that I just, you know, again, this could be just me, but I just couldn't be arsed listening to all the talking. Now, some of you guys were like, hey Jack, you know, if you don't like listening to the characters, why not just skip the dialogue? But then some of you guys were like, hey Jack, if you're, you know, why buy a story-based game if you're not going to listen to the story? I've got a couple answers to that because I want to kind of address all of these concerns as kind of quickly as I can and as swiftly as I can. I didn't buy this game for the story. I didn't know there was going to be this much story. I imagined, before I purchased the game, I thought that Fire Emblem was like a kind of tile-based strategy game, which it is. But there's a whole nother part to Fire Emblem Three Houses that is obviously the social aspects. The game has a huge cast, and for me, it becomes quite overwhelming to micromanage all the characters. So if you have your own house of like, you know, I don't know how many people are in your house, like 12 students or something, maybe more, maybe less, then you start recruiting other students from other houses to try and give yourself a more diverse cast of units. You start recruiting the teachers, which is cool. I'm glad that you can do that. Now, because I'm a bit of a nerd and I'm a bit compulsive when I play video games, I naturally fall into the hole of trying to min-max everything. It's just what I want to do. It's just what makes me happy. But this game for me became quite a chore at times. I don't know how I would provide a solution to this. This is something I mentioned all the way through the playthrough. I don't know how you could make this better, because if you take some of the characters out of the game, you ruin the diversity of the cast, right? And it reduces like replayability and things like that as well, like I said earlier. But I just felt like there's a lot of people that you need to talk to. There's a lot of people you have to listen to. And some of it's fun, some of it's quirky, some of it's entertaining. A lot of it's just, it feels very filler. And again, just not up my street. So I don't want to dwell on it for a long time, but I got to the point where there was so many social interactions. We timed at one time. I think your average social, if you listen to the two people talk, let's say you're listening to Hubert talking to Edelgard in the cafeteria about what colour Hubert's underwear is or whatever, I don't know. It normally on average takes about 2 minutes to listen to these people, but as you get deep into the game and as you min-max properly and as you start to level up all of your units, suddenly you've got not thousands, but you've got lots and lots of these kind of interactions going on. Now again, I'll say one last time, if you enjoy that, that's great. There's a lot of content here for you, but if you don't like that, holy shit dude, it gets very exhausting. It comes down to personal preference, I think, and I didn't really gel with it. I could have, I could have just picked the heroes that I wanted and listened to those individually, but then I was incentivized as a player to try and listen to all of the interactions, to go into the social aspects and let the social interactions take place. I guess maybe they could have had a system set up for players who don't have as much time, or people who are less patient, or people who are not even that bothered about the story. Maybe some sort of simple social interaction where you have two people meet in the dining hall and it just quickly tells you, you know, Hubert and Ferdinand have increased their bond over beers or something like that. Now, that would maybe perhaps kill the identity of what this game is supposed to be, so I doubt they would ever implement that, but I just felt like it was very tedious and very boring and very anime at times, you know. It's not just like, if you have a Bernadetta scene, on one hand Bernadetta is really cute and adorable and it's funny to listen to her anxieties and all that stuff, and as she grows you start to maybe like her more, which is all great, but there was a couple of times where Bernadetta came onto my stream, onto the screen, and she would take like 8 sentences, literally 8 sentences, to try and make the point she was trying to make. I get that's her character, but it was so fucking annoying. Like, I don't know. It just felt a bit mundane. But anyways, I really do think, to kind of summarise that waffle, it comes down to what you like. If you enjoy this in the social interactions, you're going to listen to them all and have a great time. But if you're like me, it feels like a lot of it just felt unnecessary and kind of nonsensical. So I ended up skipping a lot of it. And again, it's a single player game, right? So you can do whatever you like. But other things to point out, I do feel like a lot of the other gameplay that they have you doing in this game round about the monastery felt really filler. So, for example, when you go fishing, you get like a tiny bit of XP and a bunch of fish. So you can fish, you can harvest flowers from the garden and all that jazz as well, which is great. And you get some points as a professor and you level up, which allows you to do more things. But I do feel like I just didn't really ever look into or use any of those things properly. Like, I would do it to get the XP, but I didn't really care about what I was harvesting. I didn't really put effort into picking and choosing which flowers I was growing, because there was just such a huge fucking amount of them. When I went to the cafeteria, there's like 1 billion meals you can choose from, which is great, because again, if you're specifically looking to level up 2 characters, maybe you need a unique bowl of pasta that only fucking Hubert and, I don't know, Felix can eat together, so you pick that. That's great. A lot of micromanaging in terms of the items in this game as well. Your weapons break. I find myself going into the inventory quite a lot and throwing the weapons backwards and forwards, repairing, fixing. Some people will love that, but I think a lot of people will get quite tired of it as well. Again, I guess if you know what you're getting into when you sign up for the game, then you won't be disappointed, but I think a lot of people like me who are maybe new to the series, picking up this game for the first time, it is very kind of D&D-like, which can be fun, but then it can also be like, holy crap, Alois's axe is broken again, fuck, I gotta fix it, alright, cool, I gotta go buy a new one. And then I fanny around in the inventory with the convoy system, and so, to me it wasn't the smoothest system. It's nice that there's flexibility there, but I don't know, man. Bit tiresome sometimes. When I'm in the monastery, I'm running about and I'm doing other things, like you've got a couple of options to choose from. We talked about all the things like harvesting and fishing, cafeteria stuff. You can start to train yourself in terms of like your tutors. You can learn to wield the sword better, you can ride horses with Ferdinand or whatever. All that good stuff, which ultimately allows you to teach your students better, but it does feel a bit kind of like a bit of a waste of time sometimes. Like if I've decided my character is going to become a swordsman with maybe a bit of magic on the side, learning the lance or steel hand-to-hand combat or heavy armor tropes from all these instructors feels a bit of a waste. And you don't have to do it, right? You would only pick the ones that you need specifically as your build, but you end up towards the late game. I had like 8 slots when I hit the monastery, so what I would do is I would maybe eat in the cafeteria. I would maybe train the things that I needed, which would be like, you know, maybe axes and swords. Maybe I would pick up riding points or something to try and excel in the kind of the knight class system or whatever. But then after that, I had like five slots, and I was like, okay, I'm at the point where I don't really give a fuck about leveling anyone up anymore because everybody's A rank, S rank. So what do I do with my time? I was kind of just throwing my points willy-nilly into things that I didn't need just for the sake of leveling up so that I could maybe teach the students better. I feel like that could have been a bit more refined. It would have been nice to have like a... It's nice when you play these games to kind of be spoiled for choice in terms of your options, but I mean, between the choir practice and learning sword fencing with someone or archery with Shamir or something, it just felt like... I don't know, I just felt a bit kind of bored a little bit. You know, again, when I play Persona, I feel like I'm running around desperate for time, and I really, really need to... Like, I know what I want, and I don't have enough time to do everything else that I want, so I have to pick and choose my favourites. Whereas this game, it was like, okay, you got 8 slots, you've got 3 things you maybe want to do, and then the other 5 are just kind of throwaway slots. Maybe that's different, maybe I just didn't fully understand the complexities of the systems, and I was maybe missing out, but that was just my honest opinion from my first playthrough. If I went back to the game and did like the blue playthrough or the yellow playthrough, maybe I would find ways to utilise my time better. I felt like I had a lot of throwaway slots. The quests that they have you doing in the monastery as well are a bit of a joke. You know, it's you talk to someone, you go to the other side of the monastery, you pick up the fish, you take it back to them. Alright, there's Renowned. You're the fish deliverer. Congratulations. It was cool to see your bars accelerating, you know, and it was cool to see your money coming in and your points going up, but all that kind of stuff was kind of gimmicky throwaway trash, in my opinion. I don't know how they could have made that better, but you've got these quests, and again, if you're even remotely kind of OCD or compulsive when you play these kind of RPGs, you're going to force yourself to do it for the sake of getting the XP. Some people might love talking to fucking Ash about what he needs from the dairy farm, and then you go across and you find his lost diary about all of his lovers or something, and then you take it back to him and he's like, oh, thanks, and then you get points. It's like, oh, mate, you know, kind of minimal effort, kind of garbage tier stuff that they've got you doing. It's up to you whether you like that. I personally thought it was kind of gimmicky and trashy, but for the most part, I really, really like. So, and as a quick kind of summary, really, really like the kind of tactical gameplay on the grid. I felt like having the wide variety of characters was really exciting, and pushing your heroes down paths that you really want them to be is really exciting as well. Forming your own team is definitely... Picking your house and forming your own team, I would say, is like the best thing about this. If you really like the social aspects, there's a lot of effort put in here with the voice acting, and the story was kind of hit or miss for me. I didn't really understand what was going on, if I'm being honest, in the beginning. The game has this beautiful kind of atmospheric art style to it, where you have all these nice scenes where you have Jiraiya narrating you what's going on, and, you know, Blue Moon Chapter 3, the arrow that stabbed the horse. You know, like, he comes in with his little narrations, and it feels quite nice to sit through. But I feel like the game does ultimately at least in my opinion, a kind of ass job of like letting you know from the get-go where you are, what's going on, who you're fighting against. In the towards the end of the game, there was this really nice kind of setup that the game had where it would show you the map, and it started highlighting the areas that you were going to attack, and actually showed you markers on the map of where you were going. And it feels, even for a dummy like me, it felt like you had a really good grasp of, okay, we're going to fight this team now, and they're part of the alliance, so that's Claude and co. Okay, we're going to go and kick his ass. Alright, now we're going north, makes sense. Good. I feel like in the first 6 chapters, I had no idea who we were fighting for, who we were fighting against. You know, if it's a throwaway mission to do with pirates attacking the bay, that's cool. I don't really need a lot of exposition for that, but sometimes I felt a bit kind of lost. You have all these names thrown at you, kind of Season 1 Game of Thrones style, and again, maybe on your second playthrough, you understand who everybody is, and you know who's coming from which direction, and you know, okay, they're from the west, they're the other church from the east, okay, there they are, soul bandits, right, cool, it's all coming together. But on my first playthrough, I didn't really understand who I was fighting, where I was going. That's just me. It could be just me being a dumbass, maybe you guys paid a lot of attention, but a lot of names get thrown at you. Back to the positives though, that was a side tangent. The actual story that you get given is quite exciting. There was a couple of twists in the middle once you get into the story, and you kind of, you know, later on, I won't talk about any, like, too many spoilers, but with us, with Edelgard, obviously there's a big twist where she decides to do something. I don't know if I was really on board with that, but I really did kind of, you know, towards the second half of the game, I kind of knew where we were going and what we were doing, which felt nice. I like that if you then go back and play the blue house or the yellow house, as the chat told me as we went through, you know, if you play Dimitri here, this is what happens, and if you speak to Claude, this detail and piece of information is revealed. I like that if you go back and you play the other parts, you get little glimpses of what's going on in the realm, and you maybe understand some people's motives a little bit better and things like that. That's great, and again, a lot of effort put in there. Ultimately though, this game, in terms of a lot of the kind of social aspects, I felt like a lot of it was a bit too kind of much. Not that interesting and entertaining to me, but again, some people might like it. I've got a kind of less is more kind of attitude having played this, where I felt a bit kind of burnt out and exhausted micromanaging, and I think a lot of other players might be as well. But again, it's down to you guys. I really do hope that if anybody else played this game, they really did enjoy it, because again, it's quite expensive, and I think that if you actually soldier through some of the aspects that you're not interested in, then there's a good game hidden in here somewhere. But that was just my thoughts. Big long ramble. Fire Emblem, ultimately quite a good game, quite expensive. It's got a lot of boring parts to it though, in my opinion, and wasn't ultimately my favourite game of the year, but still. Good game to make a cup of tea and sit in front of the fire with a duvet on and just fucking snug in, I think.